Have you ever looked at your bank account and thought, like, where did all my money go? Because I've definitely been there. I used to think I had plenty of time to figure everything out. Investing later, learning new skills later, figuring out what I actually wanted to do with my life, yeah, later. And like I wasn't doing anything terrible. I was just kind of drifting through life, hanging out with friends, waiting for the weekend, telling myself everything would somehow work out, which honestly is what a lot of people do. The problem is that later turns into month and months turn into years. And then you're sitting there thinking, wait, what have I actually done to improve my life? And trust me, I've been there too. That's why I made this video. Because some of the biggest mistakes in your 20s don't feel like mistakes at all. They just feel normal. So let's talk about the 5 biggest ones. So the first one is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make in their 20s. Not investing in themselves. And when I say investing in yourself, I'm not talking about stocks, crypto, or anything like that. I'm talking about learning new skills, reading books, improving your communication, your fitness, your mindset, things that actually make you a better version of yourself. And honestly, this is something I avoided for a long time. Not because I didn't know it was important, I knew. I was just choosing the easier option. It was easier to scroll on my phone, easier to watch videos about getting rich while doing absolutely nothing about it. I was going to college and kind of thought that would be enough. Like somehow everything would just work itself out. And before you know it, a year goes by and you're pretty much in the same place. The truth is, nobody is born with valuable skills. Nobody is born knowing how to run a business, sell, communicate, create content, invest, or make money online. Those are all skills. And skills can be learned. Actually, one of the best ways to invest in yourself is completely free or very cheap. Reading. A lot of people underestimate how powerful books are. For example, Warren Buffett has said that he spent hours every day reading when he was younger. Some reports say around 5 to 6 hours a day. Now, I'm not saying you need to read that much, but there's probably a reason one of the greatest investors ever spent so much time learning. And fun fact, the first time I really started learning about investing wasn't through school. It was through a book. The Millionaire Next Door. What I liked about that book is that it wasn't selling some crazy dream. It was based on research about actual millionaires. And one thing that surprised me was how many wealthy people live below their means, invested consistently, and focused on building assets instead of trying to look rich. That completely changed the way I looked at money. And that's why investing in yourself is so important. Because while most people are focused on entertainment, someone else is learning a skill. Someone else is reading. Someone else is improving. And at first you won't notice the difference, but after a few years the gap becomes massive. The skills and knowledge you build today can create opportunities for the rest of your life, and that's something nobody can take away from you. The second mistake is relying on just one source of income. And honestly, this is something most people don't really think about when they're in their 20s. But your 20s are actually the perfect time to take risks, try new things, and build something that could improve your future. You finish college or university, you get a job, you get paid every month, and that's pretty much the plan. But here's a question. If your job disappeared tomorrow, would you still have money coming in? For most people, the answer is no. And honestly, that's pretty scary when you think about it, because your entire financial situation depends on a single paycheck. Now, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a job. Most people start there. I did too. But I also think it's important to have something else going on. Maybe it's a side hustle. Maybe it's freelancing. Maybe it's content creation. Maybe it's selling a service online. Or maybe it's something completely different. The point is to start building something of your own. And honestly, I think a lot of people never start because they're scared of failing. Or they're just too comfortable where they are. I used to think like that too. But the reality is that most successful people didn't get it right on their first try either. They just started. Even when they didn't feel ready. For example, before this, I tried reselling different things online. Did I become rich from it? No, but I learned a lot. I learned how to communicate with people, negotiate prices, understand what people actually want, and make money outside of a normal job. And looking back, those lessons were huge. Way more valuable than the money I made. And that's the thing most people don't realize. Even if your side hustle doesn't make money right away, you're still learning, you're building skills, you're gaining experience, you're meeting new people, and sometimes those things end up being more valuable than the money itself. Because you never know where those skills might lead in the future. That's why I think relying on one paycheck is one of the biggest mistakes people make in their 20s. Because the earlier you start building something of your own, the more opportunities you'll have later on. And trust me, having options feels a lot better than depending on a single paycheck. The third mistake is waiting too long to start investing. And honestly, I think this happens because a lot of people believe they need a lot of money before they can even begin. But that's not really true. Even small amounts invested consistently can have a huge impact on your financial future over time. I used to think the same way. I thought investing was something only rich people did. I'd tell myself, I'll start when I make more money. I'll start after university. And I kept thinking I had all the time in the world. But the reality is, I don't. None of us do. Looking back, I honestly wish I'd started earlier. Trust me, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. For example, if you invest $200 a month starting at age 20 and continue for 30 years, you could end up with around $450,000. But if you wait until you're 30 and invest even $400 a month, you could still end up with less money, around $300,000. And I think that really shows something huge. Starting early with even less money can be better than starting later with more. The truth is, there's always going to be another excuse. And that's why so many people keep putting it off. The thing is, investing isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about giving your money time to grow. And time is probably the biggest advantage you have in your 20s. Like, that's the part most people underestimate. You don't need thousands of dollars. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to start. Just start doing it now. Because once you start, you learn. And investing slowly becomes a habit instead of something that feels complicated. Honestly, one of the most common things I hear from older people is, I wish I started earlier. I've never heard anyone say, I wish I waited another 5 years. And I think that says everything. So if you're in your 20s, don't wait for the perfect moment. Trust me, it probably doesn't exist. Start small, learn as you go, and let time do the heavy lifting. The fourth mistake is trying to look rich instead of actually becoming rich. And honestly, I think social media has made this way worse. Like, I remember one of my friends constantly watching TikTok videos of people showing off expensive cars, watches, and luxury lifestyles. After a while, he started saying things like he was falling behind in life and that everyone else was doing better than him. But the reality is, social media only shows the highlights. You don't see the debt, the stress, or the problems behind the scenes. Everywhere you look, people are showing off expensive cars, designer clothes, and luxury vacations. And after a while, you kind of start thinking that's normal. So when you see stuff like that online, don't take it too seriously. Most of the time, you have no idea what's actually going on behind the scenes. I remember one birthday when I spent almost all my money on a new phone. Did I need it? Not really. My old phone worked perfectly fine. I just wanted the newer one. And honestly, looking back, it's kind of funny now. At the time, it felt like a huge deal. Like I absolutely had to have it. But in reality, it didn't change my life at all. And compared to some of the mistakes I've seen other people make, it was pretty small. For example, I know people who took out loans to buy cars they could barely afford. At first, everything looked great. Nice car, nice photos. But then reality kicked in, monthly payments, huge insurance, maintenance cost more. And when the first major repair came, they didn't have enough money to cover it and had to ask my parents for help. And that's the part nobody posts on Instagram or TikTok. The thing is, a lot of people spend money trying to look successful instead of actually building a better future. And trust me, there's nothing wrong with buying nice things. I mean, if you can comfortably afford them, go for it. But there's a huge difference between buying something because you genuinely want it and buying something just to impress other people. Because at the end of the day, most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're usually too busy thinking about themselves. And once you realize that, it's way easier to stop chasing appearances and start making smarter financial decisions. The fifth and final mistake is choosing comfort over growth. And honestly, this is probably the mistake I've struggled with the most. Because comfort feels good, it's easy. You know what's hard? Trying to do something new, taking more risks. And I know it's scary, but sometimes you just have to do it, putting yourself in situations where you might fail. And I know that's scary, but sometimes you just have to do it. Because the reality is, growth usually happens when you're uncomfortable, not when you're doing the same things every day. And I think a lot of people know exactly what they should be doing. They know they should start that business. They know they should go to the gym. They know they should learn a new skill. But instead, they keep putting it off. And that's a very dangerous habit, because if you want to grow, you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone. You have to do the things that feel scary. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to make a change. So yeah, those were the 5 biggest mistakes I think people make in their 20s. And honestly, the reason I wanted to make this video is because I've made some of these mistakes myself. I've wasted time. I've spent money on things I didn't need. I've told myself, I'll start later. And trust me, later comes a lot faster than you think. The good news is that you're still young. You still have time to learn new skills, build better habits, start investing, and create the life you actually want. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start with one thing. One better decision, one new habit, one step in the right direction. Because a few years from now, you'll either be glad you started today, or you'll wish you had. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.